She ran for glory, her feet chasing dreams across continents. But in the end, it wasn't a race that stopped her. It was the fire of betrayal. This is not just a crime story. It's the haunting unraveling of an Olympian's final days. A tale of love turned lethal, and silence where there should have been justice. This is the murder of Rebecca Cheptegei. Rebecca Cheptegei was a Ugandan long-distance runner who blazed trails for her country. She held Uganda's national marathon record and was a former world champion in mountain running. A sergeant in the Uganda People's Defense Force, she balanced military duty with international competition. In August 2024, she realized a lifelong dream by racing the women's marathon at the Paris Olympics. Though she finished 44th, her presence on that world stage showed how far she had come. In her athletic prime, a veteran of the international running scene, and a role model for thousands of young Ugandan girls, Rebecca's life was full of promise and purpose. Yet off the track, Rebecca was also a devoted mother and the breadwinner of an extended family. She had 2 young daughters, ages 9 and 11, and helped support her parents and 11 siblings. Friends describe her as hard. Off the trail, Rebecca's greatest struggle was an abusive relationship. Around 2020 or 2021, she met Dixon Liema Marangach, a former motorcycle taxi driver turned aspiring runner, while living in Uganda. Marangach courted her with dreams of training in Kenya's famed highlands, and in 2021, Rebecca moved to a small village called Kinyoro near Iten, where she had built a modest 2-bedroom home. At first, he seemed supportive, but soon, their relationship took a dark turn. Rebecca and her family say Marangach became controlling and threatened her over the land they shared. Within months of moving in, the couple split. Rebecca ended the relationship in January 2024, fearful of the control and violence. But the nightmare did not end. Over the next months, she filed multiple police complaints against Marangach, pleading for protection. Her father, Joseph Cheptegei, kept the police report slips showing that in February and May 2024, Rebecca reported threats and physical abuse. "This man is going to kill my child," he warned officers during one visit. They reportedly told Marangach to stay away from her home and nothing more. By late August, Rebecca was scared enough to make another plea. On August 30th, 2024, just days before the Olympics, she approached the police again with fears for her life. She reminded them of a brutal attack in January when Marangach had beaten her and even threatened to cut her up. "We reported to the police, and they did nothing. My daughter died because the police failed," Joseph would later say. But once again, authorities did little. One officer later told reporters that the complaint was treated as a land dispute, not domestic violence. In truth, Rebecca's family showed a signed deed proving Rebecca had bought the Kinyoro plot in 2021 with Marangach only a witness. Then the tragedy struck. On the afternoon of Sunday, September 1st, 2024, Rebecca had been returning from church. Her 2 daughters, 9 and 11, and her 17-year-old sister walked alongside her. Suddenly, her ex-boyfriend emerged. Police later revealed that Marangach had secretly bought 5 liters of petrol and was hiding by a chicken coop on the property. As Rebecca hung laundry, a storm approaching, Marangach poured fuel over her back and arms. In an instant, he struck a match. He poured the petrol and lit her on fire, an eyewitness reported. Rebecca screamed in agony as flames engulfed her body. According to her father's account, the girls watched in horror The children saw everything, even as their mother was burning. He said, Rebecca grabbed at her flaming clothes and ran. Marangat chased her sister down with a machete. Neighbors rushed out and found Rebecca thrashing on the ground with 80% of her body charred. They beat on the flames, wrapped her in blankets, and raced her to Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret, Kenya. At the hospital, doctors fought to save her life, but the burns were too severe. 4 days after the attack, on September 5, 2024, Rebecca Cheptegei succumbed to her wounds. On her father's arrival, she lay in a coma. In heartbreaking words he later shared, Rebecca whispered, "I don't think I am going to make it. If I die, just bury me at home in Uganda." Marangach was also badly burned in the fire. He was treated in the same Eldoret hospital, but his injuries proved fatal too. On September 9th, 8 days after the attack, the former boyfriend died from his wounds. Kenyan police confirmed that Marangach had been under investigation for murder at the time of his death. With both victim and accused now dead, the nightmare left more questions than answers. Rebecca's killing came amid widespread shock and anger. Her family and friends bitterly blamed law enforcement. "I went to the police 3 times, her father said. They only told him to stay away, then did nothing else. In fact, the Cheptegeis produced paperwork proving Rebecca's repeated visits. 2 separate police stations, in Kinyoro and nearby Kitale, had records of her complaints in early 2024. Yet, each time authorities failed to follow through. By September, Joseph Cheptegei lamented, "My daughter died because the police failed." When Rebecca was brought to hospital in flames, officers on scene said they also heard of her past pleas. One detective admitted that the final 999 call had been treated as a property dispute. Civil society groups responded furiously. Activist Joan Chelimo noted that Kenyan courts never held officials accountable. "No one is held accountable," she told Reuters, referring to the deaths of Cheptegei and other runners. The outcry was echoed by many. As UN Women Africa put it on Twitter, "No impunity for perpetrators." Underscoring the pattern, Ugandan journalist Malindi Elmore wrote that the murder of Rebecca should be a huge call to address gender-based violence worldwide. The news galvanized communities across East Africa. Activists in Kenya staged an impromptu march. As Rebecca's body lay in Eldoret, runners and human rights advocates bore a white coffin through the streets. "Stop femicide," read the placards. Family and friends wept along the procession, as they had for previous tragedies. An Al Jazeera reporter noted, "Her body began its final journey," accompanied by activists calling for an end to gender-based violence in Kenya. At a makeshift morgue in Eldoret, Rebecca's polished wooden casket was surrounded by mourners in white t-shirts and Kenyan flag caps. Hundreds of athletes and Ugandan dignitaries are gathered, lighting candles and embracing the grieving family. Her younger sister sobbed at the coffin side. In this procession before dawn on September 13th, Burundi-born long-distance champions from Uganda and Kenya walked side by side, remembering the vibrant woman they had lost. Kenya Sports Minister Kipchumba Murkomen, speaking at the scene, called Rebecca's killing a stark reminder that authorities must do more to protect women. Her journey did not end in Kenya. On September 14th, relatives escorted Rebecca's remains across the border to Bukwo, Uganda, her ancestral home. A military band played and uniformed soldiers from Uganda stood guard as a polished grave was dug. Uganda's president and senior officers led hundreds in last rites. The coffin was lowered amid gun salutes. In Bukwa's highland, villagers sang hymns under grey skies as the Olympic champion was laid to rest. She was eulogized as a hero, a mother and a sister. Even in Paris, tributes poured in. World Athletics President Sebastian Coe said, "Our sport has lost a talented athlete." The Paralympic Games held a minute's applause for her on September 8th. The city of Paris announced it would name a sports venue in her honor. In Uganda, officials pledged financial support for Rebecca's children. Rebecca Cheptegei's death shocked the running world because it exposed grim reality. Elite female athletes in East Africa live with the threat of violence. She was not the first. Since 2021, at least 4 professional female runners have been murdered by their intimate partners in Kenya and Uganda. In October 2021, Kenyan champion Agnes Tirop was found stabbed to death at home, a killing that later led to murder charges against her husband in 2022. Kenyan-born marathoner Damaris Mutua was killed by an ex-boyfriend in Kenya. She had switched nationality to Bahrain. Each time the sports community mourned and activists warned, no runner is safe from domestic abuse. The statistics are chilling. Even beyond athletics, violence against women in Kenya is widespread. Government data show that about 1 in 3 married women have endured physical abuse. A local NGO, Femicide Count Kenya, reported 157 deliberate killings of women in 2024 alone, the highest annual toll since it began tracking. Former Olympian Malindi Elmore, recalling running with Rebecca just a few weeks before her death, put it bluntly, "It is shocking, heartbreaking, and should be a huge call to address gender-based violence worldwide." The whispers of the past in Kenyan athletics have become cries for change. Since Cheptegei's murder, other women runners have spoken out about abuse, and sports federations have pledged to strengthen athlete safety policies. But fear remains. In the dense morning light of the high-altitude camps, some women wonder aloud, who will be next? Rebecca's story echoes far beyond the hills of Iten or the tracks of Paris. It whispers through every household where fear is silenced, where cries for help are ignored. She was more than a runner. She was a mother, a soldier, a dreamer, and now a ghost calling for justice. In her name, may we finally